John, welcome to Friday. It sounds like my neighbor is having a disco dancing bash of some kind that I have not been invited to. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm here at the party next door, and it's
Can you hear the beat?
it, hear it. I'm making it. This is all my gear. I got the, I'm playing
You're
it,
the
man.
DJ.
I got everything.
Yeah,
Exactly. I got everything right
perfect.
now.
Excellent.
So forgive me. I'll try and turn it down here so that we can have our show at the same time. Kind of fun
Yeah.
doing both of us.
Yeah. Well, it's been a hell of a week, right? You've got Joe Biden jetting around to Israel. The thing is, you and I were having an interesting conversation earlier today, this notion of, is this a distraction? And I mean, obviously not. It's a huge, crazy, and very serious war there in Israel. But I knew what you meant. Like, it seemed like, people were starting to become not so interested in supporting this unending war in Ukraine. And then all of a sudden we have a new war, almost like, shiny new thing.
Well, I think we'll dig into this with some detail. But I think a lot of people were saying, "What was this trip necessary?" In fact, I think he was asked this question by the press while on the plane, either on their way to Ramstein or on their way out of there. And did you see that footage where he's talking
like,
to the
who
press?
am I again? He's totally out of it.
Well, no, he said, was it necessary? And he says, well, what do you think? Right. And so he answers questions with questions.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was he had, what's her name? Corinne Jean-Pierre.
Yeah.
So she's next to him. And then John Kirby's right, behind him. Uh-huh. And then you see Blinken is kind of hiding in the some sort of closet off to the side. And so as Joe is talking, you can just see Kirby and Corinne and Blinken are just like, please, just don't blow it for the, don't start World War IV. Okay. Don't start World War IV. So listening to the questions, well, it seems as if his role, and I'm wondering if, who crafted this and if this persona was crafted on Martha's Vineyard. But it seems that the role that they've crafted for Joe is this empathizer in chief. And this is going to sound terrible. It's going to sound callous and all that. And that's why it's good that I'm here because, right, you guys know I don't really actually care. So Joe seems to play the card without necessarily saying the words. So in other words, going to Israel and meeting with these guys, to me, this is kind of what I'm reading between the lines from Joe, is Joe saying, look, I lost my wife. I lost my kid.
Yeah.
I know what that's like to lose a wife, a spouse, and a child.
Parachute into your house.
But that's it. Like that's the hand he can play. That's it. And the question is, was this persona crafted on Martha's Vineyard by former such and such and Avril Haines and what have you? And did they come up with this and say, you know what? He's toast unless we do this empathizer in chief type thing. So he's going to fly there, and now you got Brit Hume saying this was the most important speech of his. So
here's Chegg.
I want to bring. Well, here's what we're going to do tonight's show. First of all, let's take a look at the thumbnail a little bit more closely, if we can, for a moment. I think it's brilliant. I love this thumbnail. Reminds me, of course, of Dr. Strangelove, right?
Yeah.
Riding the missile.
AI.
But I want to go back to tonight. I want to go back to reality. I want to go back to the attack. When we go to our patron-only show, I have curated some footage to put the original attack in perspective. And I want, again, it's not for sensationalism or anything like that. I kind of kept that stuff out of it. In fact, I saw some stuff that was horrible And so we don't really need to see that. But there's certain aspects of it that I think the audience needs to see. And then I think it's important to look at the U.S. reaction with Blinken, with Biden, with the U.S. Navy sending a carrier.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you something, John, because I was looking at some of the news coverage and they're like interviewing different special operations guys and stuff. Aren't they really covering it like sort of like it's already World War III? They really want that on the news, it seems.
Well, this is this is one aspect of it that just fell apart in the last 24 hours, which is, I guess, no, Joe Biden goes and meets with a bunch of Delta Force guys. And they don't black out their faces or their name tags. And they post the picture of Joe with Delta Force. So first of all, what the hell's Delta Force doing over there already? Wait, whoa. Who did we vote for this in Congress? Oh, right. Congress is dysfunctional. So no. So Delta Force is already over there. Joe's in the photo op with them, but they don't, do whatever they're supposed to do with the face, with the what's that called? What's that called with the face? When they don't do that. And they don't do it with the name tags.
Man.
And so they doxed Delta, the White House.
So stupid.
Doxed Delta Force. Okay. So that in and of itself is just like, kick back, put your feet up, put the popcorn on. It's like, what the hell are they doing?
Did you know this guy? There's always somebody in high school or in college or whatever who is like your friend, but this guy, every time you get something going with this guy, it's like screwing up. That's Joe, right? And eventually you just stop inviting that guy. He's like the guy who kicks over the barbecue grill and sets the house on fire.
I like We on News, by the way, in India. I like that woman, her coverage. She's a hardy. She's very
I had never heard of this before, but they were talking about how he revealed the identities. This is from India.
And then the White House, WeOn is in India, and they do a podcast news. It's fantastic. I get a lot of data from her. She's dynamite. Yeah, she's dynamite. So this was just a big screw up in the last 24, 48 hours that they doxed Delta Force. And then they had to pull it, and a couple 100,000 people got to see it. I'm sure it's already in the hands of guys who want to kill these guys. But what the hell's Delta Force doing over there? Here's kind of my point, what we're going to look at tonight on the show. You've got, basically, when we look at the attack, it took place on a Saturday morning in Israel, right, at 5:30 a.m.
Sabbath.
That's the Sabbath, right? So they celebrate the Sabbath, and the hardcore Israeli Jews don't use electricity on the Sabbath. They don't listen to the radio. They don't use the
How
phones.
much of the population of Israel is that, though?
I don't know. What you're asking me? It's a Jewish state. I don't know what the rules.
Because that's
it's like asking me how many of the 9 million people in Israel are kosher. What the hell do I know? I don't. I don't keep track of that stuff. I wouldn't know. Do you know? You know how many of the 9? Yeah, ask Google.
I'm doing
or my ex-wife. That's my first wife. She knows
10
everything.
Jews in Israel, 63% say they keep kosher in their home, nearly 3 times the share of American Jews. 22%, that sounds high to me.
Sounds high to me too. So since it had an answer for that, ask it how many Israelis observe the Sabbath? And there's your answer.
That's a good idea.
How many Israelis observe the Sabbath? So that's how many don't touch their phone. They don't touch the smartphone. It's like the Sabbath for Jews is like every day for the Amish. Okay, it's like candles and
this is the New York Times in 1983. Don't see a good answer to this here. Sabbath costs Israel billions of dollars every year. 600,000 Israelis work on Shabbat. No orderly study has ever been conducted detailing how much work Israelis conduct on Shabbat because everybody's taking the day off. See, they can't even calculate. That's the problem.
All right. So the net of it is, you're talking about a state that was formed for Jewish people, right? That was the whole idea of it, right? You got a Jewish state called Israel. So we got a bunch of Jewish people, and on their holiest day of the week,
right,
the day that they act like what we here in America would call Amish, right? So the Amish don't use the cell phones at all, right? They don't do any of that. So no electricity, right? The Mennonites, right? It's hardcore out there in Ohio.
Build houses and ride around on horses.
And the houses are post and beam construction without metal nails. They don't even use metal. They use total, dowels. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's hardcore. Western Pennsylvania and Ohio, the Amish and the Mennonite
I bet those houses
cultures,
are
it's
good.
amazing. Yeah, and I think Steve Kirsch went out there and met with everybody and said, they don't vaccinate their kids. And they said, so, how many of the kids are autistic? None.
Yeah.
None. Right. So, pretty interesting stuff.
But they had some other problems. They did some documentary about Amish.
Oh, well, that's because everybody marries their sister. But other than that, everything is groovy. Yeah, besides that. Yeah, so what?
Is this a house they built? It's pretty good.
Amish?
Look at that.
Yeah.
That looks good.
Man, you got to head out there, man.
Wow.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Come on, that's a undeniably nice house.
Pennsylvania's cool. Pennsylvania's huge.
Look at the trees and the flowers.
Yeah. You ever drive? You have.
A bit far afield here. Yeah.
All right, let's go back to our deck. Let's show everybody a couple slides before we have to go to our Patreon-only show. Last Friday, go back up. Last Friday was Friday the 13th, and what our patrons got to learn, and you guys on YouTube didn't get to learn about until a week later, so it's kind of boring news now for you because you're on YouTube only, but the patrons are cool, and they knew this for a week. So the cool patrons knew that Friday the 13th was the original night of the longsword, and that this is when King Philip of France said, let's round up and kill all the Knights Templar. And this was...
on a whim? Like, why did he say
no, it wasn't quite on a whim. I think they had been a thorn in his side for quite some time. So I don't think it was whimsical. Yeah, I think it was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. And he rounds up the Knights Templar, and some of them are killed, some of them are captured, many of them who are captured are tortured. And this is the original Night of the Long Sword, and it's the reason that Friday the 13th is considered unlucky. So we reviewed this last week. So it was the Knights Templar being butchered 700 years ago. I've also mentioned on the show a couple times that Twitter seems a bit incessant that I follow the NSA. Yeah. And I've showed you guys like once or twice I've shown this to you, but I don't know that I've ever actually took a couple of these shots. It's like
they've got the meat.
Arbys. It's like, I didn't mention anything with roast beef in any of my posts.
Why would they follow Arbys?
But look, all right, but hang on, a couple of these are interesting. So first of all, the point is Twitter recommends that you follow big names if they look at your stuff. So, if Dr. Drew comes and looks at my content, it'll say, we recommend you follow Dr. Drew.
Follow Arbys.
Okay? All right. Yeah. So that's why I don't know why Arbys is looking. So let's look at the one in the upper left-hand corner. It's got the NSA, Ian Miller, and Dr. Ely David. Okay, now Dr. Ely David, I do a lot of posts about how stupid he is because he did this thing about what happened to influenza, and he's citing Jordan Schachtel, who doesn't know anything about anything with this. And so I basically call them out, and they do what they all do. He joins the Pussy Patrol, puts on his little kitty costume, and doesn't say anything. It's like they can't retort because they don't have any data that works. Right. So these guys, I get it. They're looking at my content and wondering, God damn, this guy just keeps nailing it. Well, but it's the guys up on top. That's some other guy. Who the hell knows? I don't know. So Ian Miller, SC, I don't know, South Carolina. All right, so now go to the one on the right-hand side. So on the right-hand side, you've got the same guys from the top on the left, that NSA organization, National Security Agency. Yeah. And then you got the GIS Lounge. Now, the GIS Lounge... Geographic Information Systems. This is where all the ESRI guys hang out.
Yeah.
And I went on there and just started, pissing on everybody's trees and bushes and said, hey, all you GIS geniuses out there, how come none of you noticed that there weren't 10 people dead in Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing, nobody was dead in Vietnam, and you call yourselves mapping experts? What are you, idiots?
Oh.
Are you all blind? Like, and I post, that's why I'm not invited to any of the parties. But you see that they keep checking on my work because I keep posting maps. And I keep saying there's not 10 people dead in Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong. Nobody was dead in Vietnam. Nobody was dead in Laos.
Do we know,
none of you picked this up.
Do we know how this algorithm works? What prompts it to tell you to follow these people? Is it that they're looking at you, or maybe you're just talking about something that it thinks it would know about or something?
If I mention them in a post, right? So if I bring up somebody else's name, then maybe I should follow them. But I don't mention them. So all of a sudden, whoa, look at the one on top.
Yeah, Kamala.
Well, so in this case, I did post something about her. No, about when she said, we know that this virus disproportionately infects and kills Black people.
Right.
And I said, well, if that's the case, then Nigeria should be wiped out. Ethiopia should be devastated if that's the case. And so we go to the maps and we check and we find out that, no, Nigeria doesn't have as many people dead as Rhode Island.
Did she make a Tupac comment?
No, but she's looking. She came and looked at it, which is kind of cute. So the fact that we've got the vice president and the NSA. So now if you zoom out, you see that they keep recommending the NSA again and again and again, meaning each one of these screenshots is taken on a different time of day, different
Arbys.
day of the week. Then they just keep telling me, you really should follow the NSA. You really should follow the NSA. So one of the things that we got to do last week was we were doing that Google Earth thing where we were looking at Gaza City in 3D. Yeah. I thought and we talked about the fact that was originally Keyhole, that software, and that was used by the CIA. And so I thought it might be fun to go back to Keyhole tonight with our patrons, and we'll take a look at the NSA, and we'll go look at their parking lot and see how many cars are out there, and then look around the neighborhood and look at what restaurants do these people eat at.
Arbys,
they
probably.
Must be having, apparently. So we're going to take a look at how close is the closest Arbys to the NSA. How many of these weasels are having lunch there and checking us out from Arbys, and that's why it's showing up as Arbys.
Have you ever had that?
So, what's that?
Oh, no, I'm thinking of Roy Rogers with the salty roast beef. Arbys, I don't know if I've ever had Arbys.
I don't know.
They have roast beef, right? I think I am thinking of Arbys. It's salty as hell.
Yep. So one of the other things that I found a little bit odd is with this reaction with Joe and flying over there and Blinken, and then they sent this aircraft carrier. Doesn't Israel have F-22 fighters and F-18s and A-10
I think they're
Warhogs
worried about Hezbollah and Lebanon and Syria and Iran becoming involved. So they figured put an aircraft carrier there.
One step at a time. So before we get into all these other guys, we can all agree that a bunch of guys with green headbands got in paragliders, flew over the wall with machine guns, and shot up a concert, shot up some neighborhoods, and killed people, innocent civilians. Like they did attack some military bases, right? We know that they attacked the military base. They attacked the police station and killed all the cops in the police station. So
Just for a second, John, contemplate the crapitude of this device here. This is basically it's like a propeller and a seat with a parachute.
Dude, wait till you see the video I have tonight. I found a unit in China that we're gonna do a GoFundMe. We're gonna get one.
No.
And then you and I are gonna go fly around. Oh yeah, we're gonna go.
I don't think it's too safe.
Oh, I think wait till you see the video. I said it's in the video folder. And we've got a manufacturer in China that whips these up, but it's got a little fuselage, and they've got them in all the different colors, and it's really cool. The other thing we got to talk about last week with the patrons was, we talked about the Gaza Strip, but we talked about that there's this potential solution that's only really a bus ride away in places like Bethlehem and Jericho and other
people said that
cities.
You don't know enough about what's going on. That's the Christian area, and it's some other problem there.
No, but it's run by the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah,
the Palestinian Authority.
People said that we don't know
I
enough
can't
about
solve
it.
all the problems. In other words, if they hate each other, I can't solve that part. I'm simply saying if we need to get people from a Palestinian Authority-run city like Gaza City and what we looked at last week, all these other areas are run by the Palestinian Authority on the West Bank.
No.
Yeah, but
they
what?
said you can't.
What?
Because this is the Christian area, and you can't do it. They said. People said. I don't know. I mean, this has been going on for 5,000 years or something. They said no.
Well, I thought it was a solution since the Palestinian
They're opening an
Authority
Arbys. People are saying.
Well, then that might solve it. So
kosher.
And remember,
Halal.
so the thing we didn't get to look at last week, and I was kind of remiss, is we didn't. So I think that's Jericho. That's either Jericho. That's either Jericho. Yeah, that picture is either Jericho or Bethlehem. It'll say on the upper right in the little box.
You just have to go to Jericho to go bowling.
That's Long Island. That's New Jericho. Is this Jericho? Bethlehem. Oh, this is the Mount David Hotel. I was thinking, I wasn't really looking for a gay hotel, but that's the first one that popped up was the Mount David. Oh. So, what am I supposed to say? But that is Bethlehem. Last week we listened to what Benjamin Netanyahu had, what he was saying to the United Nations just a few weeks earlier, that because Israel did these Abraham Accords and was doing peace deals with United Arab Emirates and was getting closer to the Saudis as a result of this Abraham Accord, Iran was really backed into a corner. And to that extent, he almost predicted that Iran was going to have to play a hard hand here. And this was 3 weeks before the attack. And so we took a look at this, and I think our patrons found this to be very interesting.
Netanyahu did, yeah. He might benefit from this Joe Biden earlobe removal surgery. Consider that.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at some of Joe's outfits later.
Oh man,
yeah. So this is the Javelin rocket, shoulder fired, $175,000
per fire
per round, baby.
Wow,
you talk about expensive ammunition.
$175,000 per round. What is it blowing up? How much is the thing it's blowing up worth?
It blows up a tank. It blows up a building. It blows up.
Could it blow up a whole building, this thing? Give us an idea.
Yeah.
What's the explosive power of that? Can it blow up a whole building? That little thing?
Javelin? Really? Hell yeah.
And collapse a building? Shoot that at a building, it collapses.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hit it in the right spot. But dude, I think they're typically used for anti-tank.
And it's got some sort of guidance, right? This thing he's looking at is a computer GPS,
thermal GPS. Yeah. And it's got like double, triple. So it's got GPS and it's got thermal and it's got.
So how many of these are scattered all around the world from leaving them in Afghanistan?
Well, my point is
Ukraine.
Again, my point is Israel buys these by the 100, right? They buy pallets of these.
Really?
Whereas the Hamas guys that came across the border were on motorbikes. They were on mopeds in flip-flops with AK-47s.
Oh,
right?
This would do a number on a paraglider.
That's kind of what I'm getting at is, did we really need to send the aircraft carrier? Like, isn't that a bit of a bitch slap to Israel? Israel's got all the F-22s and F-18s, and they've got the Bradleys, and they got the tanks, and these guys are coming over on mopeds and hang gliders.
No, I was going to say, if they're coming on paragliders, you could basically shoot them in the nuts with a tennis ball.
Yeah, but do you remember back when we thought that they were balloons that we were sending the F-35s up after, right? And
Yeah.
we said, well, they shot at it, but they missed. And then they shot at it and they weren't sure if they hit it.
You're right. It's
And I said,
incompetent against these type of like primitive targets or whatever you would call
right.
it.
And I said, right. They went to Milley and they said, General Milley, we're not prepared to battle against objects that fly at 5 or 6 knots. We're going 400, 500, 600 knots. You want us to battle a fleet of balloons going 5 knots? That's not fair, sir. We can't even tell if we hit them. By the time we'll get weapons locked, we pass
Speaking of
them.
knots, we're not able to continue because we've got to go over to the sponsor exclusive segment. We're out of time.
Wait till you see the
here,
video.
John. People are going to join us
we have tonight
on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. Now, I don't know if you heard about this, but the SEC sued Library Inc. and they lost. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with Odyssey.com, but it's working today. Thanks to everybody sponsoring on Odyssey, but you can also join on CrowdsourceTheTruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com